morning, everyone who's made it here at 8:30. I'm going to give a couple more minutes just because it's so early. And I thank you all so much for coming after what was hopefully a more fun Monday night than you usually have. So I'm very excited to present today. This project has been a sort of a baby of ours for about 1.5 years now, and it's been live for 4 months. And so it's pretty exciting. It's a marriage between two technologies that we love, and hopefully all of you are interested in seeing how these two can work together very well. So how many in the room are from the BI track? Okay, great, many of you. And then how many are from Apex? Couple? Okay, great. So I actually have another question all for the BI folks. I've been at a couple different places where we all refer to this technology in a different way. So in my first place, we called it OBIEE. How many of you have referred to this as OBIEE? Okay. Then I moved to University of California, and now they call it OBIEE. And then we had a consulting firm come in who calls it OBIEE. So does anyone know if there is an official name for this? Okay, well, I'm going to go with OBIEE for today, if that's all right with everyone. Apex is pretty straightforward. So this dashboard is built in OBIEE, and it actually was first built with just the tabs that you'll see: overview, portfolio, fund summary, transactions by month, and personnel. What we did when we used Apex to broaden the functionality of this product was we added projections, burn rate, and HR lookup. And so today you're going to see what this does and how powerful this has been for our users, and hopefully this is a great use case for you in your development. So what is iPortfolio? Well, this dashboard was conceived to help faculty who do research on campus. And at Berkeley, we have about $2 billion in research funding, and it's spread across somewhere around 20 to 30,000 different funds. So you talk about a lot of different restrictions and needs, and a lot of analysis is put in every day to figuring out how much money is left in these individual buckets. A lot of the research that's done on campus is conducted by graduate students, and they're hired by professors. So one of the challenges is figuring out how much funding you have when you've promised a student that they have this research position, but you've got all these funds, and where can you fit them into your funding? So we have an organization on campus called Research Administration. There are about 175 research analysts. And these folks have spent their entire job helping faculty to solve this problem. Well, what you'll see as we get into this presentation is what the challenges were that ended up causing me to say, hey, why don't we figure out how we can take Apex, this very versatile application, and design something that can help you do your job much, much faster, much easier, so that you can really be of better service to the faculty. So iPortfolio started with budgets and expenses and encumbrances and gave a balance. But what you don't see in that balance is for a project that may span 2, 5, 10 years, when you've got salary and benefits that are going to take up 80% of that funding, how do you know what is really left? And that was the key question that they always ask. What money do I have with no calls against it? What we started with was adding functionality to the first few tabs so that you could see from a summary level down to detail. But then this project, using Apex, we built a form so people could enter and review financial projections. And it's a lot more exciting than just that, as you'll see soon. So who got involved in this project? Our sponsor is the COO of what's called Campus Shared Services, and that is an organization that houses IT, HR, and research administration, so it's a monster. And they were really trying to figure out a way to be more efficient. So they partnered with us, the functional team, and I put together a team of a variety of people from around campus to help make sure this was a success. So I was the functional lead, and I designed the tool. Then, the way things go in higher ed, you kind of have to do a lot of the work before you actually get an official project. So I had to have all the specs and requirements pretty much done before they funded it. And at the point that they said, okay, we approve this to be built, then they hired a program manager and helped me put together all the other people. So we had a great time doing this. We had a communications lead who was fantastic. We have change management experts, subject matter experts. The functional owner of the tool is the controller, and then a training lead who helped to put together a lot of great materials for us. And then in addition to that, we reached out across campus to make sure that what we were going to build would meet the needs. So we had a RA functional focus group. These are our users. So the RAs are the ones who are going to be in there using the tool. We had to make sure that they had a say in what we built. We also have faculty using this tool. And this is a tricky situation because the faculty are not always trusting their RA, and the RA is not always trusting the faculty, and they both see these funding sources in different ways. So figuring out how to bridge that gap, we wanted to hear from both sides. But we couldn't do it in the same room. So it was interesting. We ended up getting them together, and things are going more smoothly now. But I'll talk a little bit more about how we achieved that later on. We also had an advisory group, and this was mainly higher level folks from around campus that would make decisions about the project. So, you know, whether we could continue to do this or that. And there were some very important decisions like who could see what data. You'll see we have a lot of integrated HR data in this project, and so that was a huge milestone, was getting approval to actually show that to everyone. And then finally we had a trainer, a dedicated trainer who has now trained every RA on campus. So 175 people got one-on-one training, and he put together a really nice guide. So we had about 39 people who were really deeply involved in the project. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the technology. OBIEE, or OBIEE, or OBI, is really, it is one of my passions. I started my career in IT because I was using this application as a budget analyst. And I found that it was a lot more fun to create new reports than it was for me to actually analyze them. So I ended up redesigning all the financial dashboards that they had at Humboldt State University, and that's how I ended up coming to UC Berkeley. What I love about this application is that you can send your users into one place to find data from all over the organization. Kind of the whole point of a data warehouse, right? So what we've done in here is, you know, when a person logs in, all the data is already filtered to them. They are directed straight to this iPortfolio itself, which is just one of many, many dashboards that we have. And now we've integrated all of the HCM. So we have PeopleSoft HCM for our human capital management. And then we have all of our finances in PeopleSoft Finance. What we do for the projections is we're actually writing those directly into our Oracle database because those are part of the Apex application. So we've got all of these things in this one integrated solution, with OBIEE being the face of it. And we're trying to get people to actually go check out all the other things we've built. One of the challenges in BI is you've got all these great things, but how do you get people to come and view them and really get involved and learn how to navigate the tool? Once they know, then they can go anywhere and they understand how to get around in the tool. So this is a great way for us to push faculty towards some of these great student dashboards. So our goal with CalAnswers, and that's what we've branded OBI at our campus, we brand all of our applications, and we want them to all come through CalAnswers. So what I love and what I'm so excited about and learning about here is that now we've figured out how to have Apex embedded in OBI. So we can extend OBI to do all kinds of things that we couldn't do before with just the traditional BI layer. So I'm going to show you a little bit of the CalAnswers iPortfolio here, and this will be a demo of the first couple tabs just to get you oriented to where we're going. We've got a few alerts for faculty here. They're required to log into a separate system and do reporting, so we help them by providing a link. We provide a lot of details about the dashboard, but the real heart of it is in this first data tab called Portfolio. This Portfolio tab shows the faculty member that is selected at the top all of their funds. And we have a view called projections, and that's the new view that is the heart of what we're doing today. So you're seeing here that they have all these different funds, this one individual, and all the blue values are clickable. So you can drill down and see what transactions made up that summary value. I usually don't do that on this page because this is inception to date reporting and you get a lot of transactions. So I'm going to click into a fund and go to the Fund Summary tab. Here we have a lot of details about the fund. So people are seeing who's the sponsor and what is the period of time. This graph shows spending against time. So it's just a percentage. So you can see if you have a low spend rate or you're spending too fast. This is my favorite part. If you want to know who am I paying that $8,349, this is each individual transaction for Ayala and with breadcrumbs right back to that fund summary tab. So really easy for people to get in and figure out exactly what's going on in their funds. You can also do this with projections that are coming out of the Apex form. So when I click into the same row for projections, now I'm seeing we are projecting for Ayala and also Max, a new employee. So you'll see that the values here, you're able to look and dig deeper and answer questions that you might have for your users. The research analysts love this because they're using Hyperion Interactive Reporting still for all of their other financial data, for like department expenses and things not related to faculty. So we're really trying to show them that OBIEE is a much, much more powerful tool. And we really want to retire interactive reporting. So here is kind of the pain of why we think this project is the perfect one to showcase first in our efforts to sort of grassroots move people over to OBIEE. Before we built the form, this is kind of how projections are going. So you've got these RAs, and every single one has their own version of projecting. So they go into historical payroll reports, and they pull out the data, and they have to, in Excel, do all their formulas for the benefits and insurance and all these different things that could be so simply automated in a tool that uses the database. So they also didn't have access to the human resources data, so they couldn't see what appointments were coming up, and that's really the key of what they're trying to project. They also did not communicate well with the faculty. There were a lot of disconnects because we had no standard process. So people would leave, and the faculty wouldn't know who to call, and it was really frustrating we've got Nobel laureates who are trying to buy the new electron microscope, and they don't know if they have the funding, and they can't find the answer. That is not acceptable. So we decided to build something that would give them this information 24 hours a day, anywhere in the world, and it would actually be accurate and standardized and could be trainable, and everyone would be able to understand what they're working on. So how did we come up with the design itself? Because with everyone doing different things, it was a challenge to come up with the right design that would work for all of our users. So I had RA leads come do demonstrations. I had the organization pick their two favorite people who they thought had the best possible, most complicated spreadsheets and do a demo for me. And then I asked them to send them over, and I used those to basically mock up a design in OBIEE just to show the look and feel that could be achieved. And then I did a different page for what would become the Apex form in Excel, and demoed that all around campus for about 6 months, getting feedback. And it really, really went well. In fact, the project started at the point where everyone said, okay, this is actually really looking like something that we want to use. And it was not a simple process to get all of the RA leads onto one design. But because we took in a lot of feedback, and I have a really close technical partner who reviewed feasibility every step of the way, we came out with something that I think is above and beyond what we actually started out thinking we could deliver. When we designed this, I had some experience with Apex at a prior campus. So the IT organization wanted to build this with OB Writeback. Has anyone ever used OB Writeback? Okay. Well, they did actually prototype that, and it was so terrible that we had to come up with something else. What they tried to do was create a way for you to put in one line of a projection, and then you would have to submit it, and then you might get a validation error on one chart string, and then you would fix that one, submit, oh, error on the next chart string. It was just totally not usable. So we shelved that, and this was before I came, and the new version of the design couldn't be done that way, because obviously we're looking at a page, and you're doing all your projections at once. So I said, what about Apex? And they said, we don't have Apex. We don't do Apex. And I said, well, we should. and it's going to make this a lot better. So let's hire a consulting firm and get this thing done. So that's what I was able to convince them to do. And the firm did a great job. They worked really closely with us, and we concurrently redesigned the actual OBIEE dashboard as well. So we added a lot of features and functionality there in addition to the form, so that when we came out, it was a big splash. So what we were able to do in the form, because it's using the database, all the data is already filtered just like it is in OBIEE. So you already are seeing all the correct values, and we're able to validate as soon as you're entering your values. We're using some select two APIs to show the lists in the Apex form that are all, and I'll show you the form here soon, that are all containing the valid values. So we don't have validation problems anymore at all. And it uses predictive type, which is huge. One of the clunkier things about OBIEE is that when you go into select, you have to kind of click through and do search and more, and people aren't that happy about that. When you're designing something to replace Excel, it has to be nimble. Because the first thing they're going to do is say, oh, well, in Excel, I can just, type and tab, and, oh, but I can copy and paste. So I said, we've got to find a way to make this form do those things and then do more things so that it is actually better than Excel. So we did add a lot of functionality like Excel. We have a way to duplicate rows, so that if you project for someone and they have multiple distributions, you can just copy the row down and change that one thing. We made a way for them to do a bulk update, which means you can update many rows all at once for one column, same value. The best part, which you'll see in the demo, is all the HCM data is shown in the form. So all you have to do is click a row, copy it up, pick an end date, and you've instantly projected that employee for however long. That data was never available to these users before. So this was one of the big sells. And we were able to achieve global access for everyone using this tool. That was a hurdle, a political hurdle. But it's really important because in the financial environment, which we're going to build out more when I get back from Kscope, I'm now wanting everyone on campus to have open financials because we're a public university. There shouldn't be all the security and craziness that we embed in our applications around who can see what when it's publicly funded. So I think we're actually, based on this project, may be successful in achieving that. And then finally in the form, we've automated the creation of the projections for the benefits and for general liability insurance and indirect cost recovery, which is huge in the grants and contracts world. And this is the real time saver. In fact, this form, when it was created, we had about 20 people had left the RA organization over the life of the project, and they decided not to rehire 8 of those because of the functionality in the form. So let's take a look at the projections tab. This is the exciting stuff.
So this is the Apex form.
So this tab, we're still at the moment within OBIEE. And that button at the top is going to open the form. But first I'm going to show you this is a report about the projections. So if you want to see the projections, you go to this report because OBIEE has great ways of exporting and moving columns around. We created a view where you can look at people by their percent distribution. So you can see people who are hired on more than one distribution line, and it will show them. And it doesn't mix in the percents for the other associated projections like IDC, and we have separate sections for each type of projection. So here, these are non-compensation, things like travel and general supplies. And then finally, anticipated funding. This is money coming in, so increments of awards that haven't been received yet. So let's go in the form. So a user wants to make a projection. They click to open this form. It opens inside the OBIEE frame, and you do have to drag it down to see the whole page, but then you've got all your projections here on what we call the Portfolio Summary tab. We have filters at the top for people to narrow down the projections for maybe you want to project for a single fund at a time. So I'm going to go ahead and choose a fund, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is all demo data, by the way. It's based on Star Wars. So we've got our aeronautics fund, and now we can see all the projections that have been entered for that fund. That filter will stay when I navigate to these other places. So we've got download buttons to drop this into a CSV file that pops up in Excel, if you want to save that off. To get in and change projections, you have to click this edit button. This was an important requirement because they didn't want new users to accidentally edit projections. So it takes a couple extra clicks to get there. So here you can see these are all writable, anything that's white. This down here is all HCM data from PeopleSoft. So these rows are all the data associated with this faculty member who has a current or future appointment. They may or may not choose to actually make a projection on these, but it's really easy for them to do that. So once you've copied up rows, you can then change anything as well. So you don't have to use the exact data that comes here. It just gives you a nice head start. Whenever you change a row, it turns blue, you apply changes, and immediately that data is available. If I closed this right now, you could see it in the OB reports. I'm going to do a few more things before I do that. So when we're looking at these employees, let's show you first how to delete an existing projection, and then we'll add it back in. It's so easy. So Max, we've got rid of, or Maz, and then we'll come down into the personnel information, and we're going to choose that row. Simply copy up, and it's here in blue. That means there's been a change. So now you can change any field you want, give it a projected through date, and that's all you have to do to create a projection for an individual employee. Maybe you are going to make them work beyond where they've currently been appointed in PeopleSoft. You can just put a note, and we allow 100 characters for comments. These are really important because users will often say, this person will be hired soon, or they're leaving the project, or it's a great way to communicate. We also have some more functionality that I want to show you called the bulk update. This is one of my favorite features. So you select a variety of rows, and then you can use this column name drop-down to choose from any of the columns. And once you've chosen one, so we're going to do projected through. Maybe we want to extend out all of these employees who were projected through June. Let's make them through the end of the year. So we'll choose December. And then when we update, all of the rows that have been selected will now have a projected through date of December. Some of these RAs have hundreds of lines of projections. For the purpose of demoing, I'm keeping it simple. But this is a real time saver. So that's one of the best features that we were able to embed in this form. All right, so let's continue. So we've made that bulk update. Now we're going to change. I want to show you a little bit about why I love Apex for using this form. You can write in, you can program each column to work off of the others. So what we're doing here is that once you select an account type, it'll choose the accounts that roll up to that type. You can also do predictive type. This is my favorite thing. You can, if you don't know your department ID, which most people don't when you've got hundreds of departments, you just start writing aeronautics and you can find it really easily. It'll pull up back anything related to that value. We also only allow you to choose values that are valid. So all the validation occurs within the form. And we've also added a lot of features to handle exceptions. So when you see the blue, that means that there are changes in the form. And you have to either apply the change or cancel, because we don't want people to do work and then lose it and not realize that they've left. Another validation we have is on the start and end dates. Of course, if you choose a start month that happens after your projected through date, that's not possible. So the form will tell you that, and you can easily cancel that change. We even have a special error handling message for closing the form. And whenever you've made a change and you go and try to close the form, it will call that out for you, so that we make sure that people don't inadvertently close Apex and lose their work. So once users are happy with the form, the way it is, you can go back to the portfolio summary and view the projections that you've just entered. And then, if you are ready, I just cleared the filter so that I could see all of my projections, and then I can download everything in one click to Excel. And that file is going to contain each of those tabs separated for me so that I have my compensation, non-compensation, and anticipated funding, just like I did within the form. And this way people can save this off or do further things with it. There's so much capability in the tool that I don't even think people are using this. But it was important to offer it because it makes them comfortable. All right, now we're back in OBIEE. We just click apply, and you'll see all of these got refreshed. When we came in before, all these appointments ended in June. And now you can see they go out through December because we did that bulk update. Not only that, but these values are now been fed throughout the entire dashboard. So I'm going to show you, once we navigate to other tabs, how we can see this data represented in the BI way. So in the personnel tab, which is the most critical for our users, because 80% of their funding is going to people. So here you can see 6 months of actuals and 6 months of projections. And what I love about this is you can tell the seasonality over time. You can see if people are coming and going. You can do this for all funds. We've got some graphical views that show by employee. And this has been able to really help people figure out who they can hire, when they can hire them, and where they can hire them, what funding, what chart stream. And they love playing around with graphs. So anytime we can do things visually, we try to do that. And that's one of the things I like about OBIEE. And Apex has that capability as well. So now I've gone to the by month version. It's very similar to personnel. We show only the expenses by type. So now you've got personnel rolled up into wage lines, and you're showing non-compensation expenses. And here you're seeing your actuals right next to the projections. So how do people know what to project? That was one of the things that we had the HCM data coming through the form, so we met that need. But what about the non-compensation expenses? You've got hundreds of funds. I want to quickly know, and in my Excel, I can do really quick averages. So part of our requirement was to build this burn rate tab. And burn rate just means what is the average amount I spend on something in a month. So here we're calculating for them, and they can choose from a variety of filters exactly how much per month. They can even add in the account column to go to a deeper level of detail. I have been trying to explain that it's better to project at a summary level rather than to every individual account, but everyone can do what they like, and they can view those values here in this report and go out and find, okay, for rents and utilities or communications or computer services, I'm going to project about $390 a month or $726, whatever that subtotal is. And then you've got an average based on what has been happening. Now, of course, you may not use that. You can do individual lines for travel and specific things, but it helps for things that are regular expenses that happen generally around the same. Okay, I'm going too slow for this. Hold on. So for the burn rate, that was for the non-compensation. So then we go to the HR lookup tab. And this is really cool because on this tab, we are showing all appointments for an individual employee ID. You enter an employee ID here, and you see every appointment they have on campus. This is different than what we show in the Apex form. In the Apex form, we're showing only the employees that are yours as the user, as the faculty member. But what if you want to hire someone who's working on somebody else's grant, and you need to know when their appointment ends? This is the beauty of the HR lookup. This employee is working on faculty A, which is who we saw in the form, but they're also working for faculty B. And now I know that I can't hire that person for more than the percent of time, more than 100%. So I've got to factor in that other appointment. So RAs are able to very quickly see what employees they have and make commitments that are accurate, and they don't end up scrambling around and figuring out how to make deals for who's going to pay for who. So this is a really powerful form. We did have to put this warning message in here because it was quite a lot of politics to get HR to approve us showing this data, but the business need outweighed the worry that people are going to go in here and look up everybody's salary, which is also public anyway. So we are monitoring the use of this report, but I think that this has been probably the biggest leap forward in terms of data sharing that we've had on our campus. So it was quite a excellent thing that we had approved for this project. So those are the tools that help the users to get in their projections. So they've got appointment data that they see now, and they've got appointment data from elsewhere, as well as burn rate. Let's go back to the portfolio tab so you can see the way that where we started, where the projections have been updated, and now we have new projected balances. And you can see that as a user, as an RA, you could go in and make a set of projections and come and check out your balance and then decide, okay, maybe I want to do that a little different. You can do that all day long. This will update instantly from the Apex form. And the actuals will update overnight, so as in a traditional BI environment. So this has been quite a game changer for us on campus. So let's talk a little bit about the architecture of how we pulled this off. We have the OBIEE application, and that's where the users start. And we created this button, and we're using an action link and custom JavaScript to open the Apex form embedded within the OB frame. And we have jQuery helping us to achieve this. So now you've opened up the form, and we have another action link that goes to the Apex server that executes our PL SQL procedure that sets the security context for the session. So what the user is able to see exactly what they need when that form loads and no one else's data. We also are using a virtual private database, and when Apex loads, that's where the data is coming from. So when users are selecting values, they're pulling from the VPD, and then when they insert back the projections, it triggers and fires off more stored procedures to create those automated projections instantly. And then they're available as soon as you go back to the OBIEE report and click apply. I'll wait for all the pictures. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about security. Security was one of the challenges here because it took about as long for us to figure out the security piece as it did to build the Apex form. We wanted users to not know they were going in a separate application. That alone would scare them. We designed the Apex form in 5.0, but we didn't use universal theme because we wanted to make it look a little bit more like OBIEE and Excel. And so I think in the future, I'm going to see if we can't get more towards universal theme, because now that people are loving this, I think they won't be quite as scared of using Apex. They don't, of course, know that that's what we're using. But for the security, what was so important to us was that we used our Active Directory. We already have people logging in, we have LDAP. Why would we have to have them log in again when they open the form? So we figured out a way to do that, and now it makes it really simple because all of our OB roles are actually used to determine what they see in the reports, and those VPD roles control what data is coming back in the form. And we also have VPD roles for our BI as well. So our security, it has two layers in OBIEE. You have an OB role to show you what dashboards you can see or ad hoc areas. And you have a VPD role controlling what data comes through. So there are users out there who could, say, have an OB role to access a dashboard, but they can't see the data if they don't have the right VPD role. And I did another project this year to clean those up so they would align so that we don't have people getting no results. That was a big problem for a while. The nice thing about having VPD is it is agnostic to the application. So when we go to a different application, like we have to add Cognos to our suite because our chancellor's office is using Cognos, and we will be getting delivered reports from them. But because if we ever wanted to move over to Cognos or any other application, we could still leverage that same VPD underneath for the data. We had a huge security breach on campus in January in our PeopleSoft BFS application. And so security has been, on everyone's mind this year. And we had to do a huge security review, and we were all really hoping it would pass, and it did. So that was huge for us. And that means that now we've got the green light to continue to build out more things in Apex and embed them in OB. Yes?
What is exactly VPD?
It stands for Virtual Private Database. And it's basically, I'm going to go back to the architecture. So in our Oracle database, it basically creates sort of like a mini database for the user based on their roles. So it pulls back the data only that they're allowed to see. and then that session ends when they log off. So it's a nice way to contain the data and not allow people access to things that they shouldn't see.
Because you basically have the username and then probably all the departments or areas they're able to see, and the OBIEE query goes back, joins to that table and brings back the data. Is that how it works?
Oh, no, WPD is a function. It returns the weather condition, so it's very performant. So send the query to the, you register the table, but you have the WPD function, it returns the weather condition basically. So that behind the scenes is applied, like the SQL weather condition.
Do you buy it separately from OBIEE or does it come?
It's a database. It's
Database one?
our DBA he controls all the VPD roles. So that's why it's application agnostic, because it's a database specific. And Apex comes with the database as well. So we didn't pay anything extra in terms of software for this, other than the consulting fees. Yeah.
And I don't know if this is in your domain or not, but because a lot of the stuff you can do with VPD, you can do with row-level security in DI. Do you use row-level security?
We don't.
And so when a user connects, are you using the user's name to connect to the database?
We're using their CalNet ID, so it's their Active Directory.
And that's in the do you know, is that in the RPD? You can put like a variable in there to get them to connect, and it'll pass the.
Yeah, it does. I've used it. So what you do is you pass the user okay to user ID in the connection pool.
Yeah.
So when they.
So each one of how many users do you have?
It's somewhere around 700.
So do you have 700 users in the database? Like 700
No,
accounts in
you
the
just pass the
database?
user ID. You just pass it. So, but in your database, you probably have the user set up as just the user ID, so you know
That's
this
what I
user
mean.
has this access.
That's what I mean, but you have to have those accounts in the database.
They're not individual. We actually don't. We have them in groups. So we have a very limited number of roles. We basically have one per subject area. And then is an extra one that's called, confidential or restricted. So we control it in some cases, it's either you get everything, you get by department, or you get everything but confidential. Because we do have some students who are confidential, like if it was the president's child or something, and no one can see their data. But in most cases, you have a VPD role, and then you have an OB role that helps govern where you see it, and the VPD is what you see. But it is actually we've really reduced the number of roles we're managing. It was getting a little squirrely for a while, and then we did a huge assessment, and now we're not all the way through. We're fixing that by the end of this summer so that it's a lot easier to maintain. But I know that each user is not individually given specific access. They're definitely in pretty big groups. We actually have a VPD, it's called a summary role, and it's not really a role, but it's a way for us to show you data at an aggregate level only. And we're using that in our HR and student areas to show dashboards for everything on campus, so you can view things like ethnicity and gender and protected data. And what it does is it will show you the data in aggregate. It won't let you go down to the row level detail, but you can see it across anything. What's interesting is before we didn't have this special, the DBA wrote it, so I can't tell you exactly what it does, but you couldn't get results at all in those protected columns. You have to have special access to row level data, but now we've gotten away from that. So we can actually show full result sets. They just are not personalized. Okay, this is kind of a fun slide. So when we were working with Apex and the security, in our first testing, we had users crossing sessions. So it was like kind of scary for me as the functional lead. I was like, wait a minute, I'm seeing the wrong faculty. When I enter a projection, it's going over here, and it was kind of crazy. When they figured out how to make that work, they were worried about when we launched the scalability of Apex, because this team has never worked with Apex before. So they said, we need to do a load test. And the trainer, who's a really funny guy, he said, well, let's market this so that we get people to actually participate. because we wanted to achieve 50 concurrent users. So we decided to schedule a flash mob, and we literally went around campus saying, come try to break our application, we're gonna have a flash mob, and it was a huge success. People were so excited about this. When you take a group and you're about to give them an application and you say, first, come help try to break it, they get really excited because, you know, they get to get in on the development and they get to kind of see, you know, and they really kind of want to break it. So it was really fun. And nothing happened. Apex totally handled it. It barely used our CPUs. So it was fine. So then all our tech team, huge sigh of relief, and we could continue moving forward. So that was kind of fun. So I suggest using the flash mob approach if you ever have to do a load test. Okay, and then I wanted to show you some of the lessons we learned in this project, because it was such a big project with so many people. And the really key thing we did was a huge user acceptance testing. What we did was we spent about a month with users. I had them come in. I had a team of RAs come in, and we went through the whole dashboard, and they entered projections, and then we waited, and I let them play around in the QA environment for a couple weeks, and then we did a financial close so that they could see how everything worked, you know, after a month close. During that UAT period, I had a Google sheet where they could all shared, you know, and they could all come in and fill out requests for changes or enhancements. This is not that typical in a UAT environment. And the tech team was like, you're just going to open this up to anybody's comments, you know. But the thing is I had them list out the business need and, you know, basically why they wanted something different. And then I went through with them in a huge session every single person's request and explained either that we would do it or why we couldn't do it, you know, when maybe it wasn't possible or maybe it didn't fit the design. And they really felt heard. It made such a difference. And when I went to demo the tool for the first time, they were actually really excited. And it was this group who was very scared going in. But having them become our partners really helped with adoption. We have 322 faculty now with projections in the tool, and it went live in April. This tool, this is a lot more than we've ever, especially this time of year. We've got, you know, fiscal close July 1. These people were not necessarily going to be going in and doing projections. They were probably going to put it off till, you know, they came back in the fall. But it really made an impact. And so we had 101 changes before go live. And then when we went live, we had in-person training for every RA. I did demos all over the campus for departments, for faculty, we had an RA all hands that was like 200 people. And even in that, they had them break out in tables and write down, okay, what you've seen, tell us, you know, good things about it and things you think will be painful. Collected all that feedback. And then I went back to my development team with 45 more changes. And they weren't all that happy about it, but we worked through it together, and I got a thank you note from a developer at the end who said, I'm so glad that you pushed me because I learned so much more in this project. So that was really special for me. And we just had a second release on June 16th with all those changes. So it's been one of those projects where now I feel like people trust our organization. They are excited about what we're putting out there, and we've got people in these tools, and we're finally getting them off of Excel. So we've got plans for, actually, let me finish that one first. We've got plans for another release in the fall. It's not going to be an Apex change, but we are going to add an end date filter or prompt to our portfolio page and fund summary so that you can go in those pages and see exactly where you were a year ago, 2 years ago. So faculty can see, when I got hired, I had this much funding, and now look at what I've got in my portfolio. So I think that's going to be a huge amount of functionality with a really small change. I mean, it's really just an in-month prompt. It'll be validating all the data. That'll take a lot of time. But that is going to be exciting. So we're going to do a big splash in the fall when they come back. So to kind of wrap up on why I wanted to come and talk about this project, I think this is really innovative. I think taking Apex and building it into an OBIEE application as though it's one with all the data from all these different sources, and then giving them the ability to enter data and use things like predictive type. You know, you're really getting closer to a responsive application that feels more like what people are used to on the web. Very hard to compete with that in BI. There's nothing I dread more than when people say, you know, why can't you do this like Facebook or Google? It's just different. So this is getting us a little bit closer. The fact that you can instantly review the projected balances, that's huge. You know, if they had to wait overnight, I don't think this would be as good of a tool. The VPD security has been awesome for us. The fact that the data is all unique to the user, that all the validation is within the form, and those custom features, a lot of those were built with JavaScript and jQuery, and they save tons of time. You know, the firm that built the Apex form really knew their stuff, and I think they've made it very performant. So I'm very happy with that. So what's next? When I come back from this awesome conference, we're going to try to get everybody off of IR. When we first talked about getting off of Hyperion Interactive Reporting, the campus freaked out. And there was one woman who is an assistant dean who stood up in a huge open forum and said, there's no way you can take this away. You know, we all know this tool, and wrote a letter to the CFO. And so that was like a total botch. So I said, let's rebrand this. Different approach. Let's not admit that we're going to get rid of IR. Instead, let's build an awesome dashboard and get people to voluntarily come over to BI. So in spring 2017, we're going to come out with our first full financials, so not just by faculty, but the whole scheme, you know, department, the whole chart string, and show them the power of OBIEE, because, you know, you can add columns on the fly, you can customize your views, you can export in a variety of ways. It's so much more dynamic than interactive reporting, ironically. So we're encouraging this voluntary movement so that by the time we get enough people really on our team, then we can say, okay, and now we're going to work on retiring bears and do that as a separate project down the line once we have a lot more people that really want all of their information coming through Cal Answers, as we call it. And we can add Apex apps now as we need them. So one thing we're going to build is a way to input comments about your funds, and which is important for the monthly close and SAS 115 compliance. And we also want to give people the ability to do fungibility, so creating new attributes for funds and then reporting on them in the dashboard. So that is everything I came to talk about today, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I could also open the form, but I tried yesterday to do it live, and I have to go through VPN, and it kept timing out, and so that's why I did the videos. But if you do want to see it or see more, let me know. Happy to try it again.
Teal,
Yes.
Oracle would love a customer quote from you from Berkeley if you could ever ask that. I think it's a great use case here.
Sure. Happy to.
You know?
Are you in the higher education user group?
Yes. I just joined this year, actually.
Pretty awesome what you're doing.
I really wanted to come and show this at Alliance, and I submitted, their due date was one day before Kscope and Collaborate, and so I missed it. But I do want to show it there. I think this is really powerful, especially for spaces where you've got these really complicated chart of accounts and a lot of different data from different sources. It's really, really been helpful for us, and I think it changes the way that we're going to go forward.
And I think that the passion with which you spoke about Apex is very good.
Oh, thank you. I really like this project. I'm here now learning all I can about Apex, in addition to continuing my knowledge of BI, because, you know, now my mind's just like, oh, what else can we do? It's very exciting. Did you have a question?
I did. And the database, where was that located in the architecture? I might have missed that.
Yes. So it is, let's go right back.
Was that close to the data warehouse? Was it
Yes, it is. So we actually are pulling data from the warehouse, and we do have a projections table and a projections header table, and that's where the projections are stored. The rest of the data is in the data warehouse, but it's all within our Oracle database.
And was this the first Apex?
Yes, this is our first app in Apex. We had to send one of our developers in the IT group to an Apex training after we were, well into the development of the form, because now we're maintaining this. Consultants are gone, so that's also why I'm here, to learn all I can, so I can help support. And I do prototyping too, so I have to be able to you know at least enough to get something up that you can get the idea of what we're going to do.
So I had used OBIEE in 2011, and then at that time the reporting from OBIEE used to be very challenging. But then the Apex came. But has the Apex caught up with a lot of large clients today? Like, maybe
I think that a lot of large clients don't know the power of Apex. Like, we're a perfect example. Our IT group thought it didn't scale, that it was for, really small, like single page apps. There's not enough people out there who understand the power of Apex.
Sorry, if I could address that.
Yeah.
There's a website out there called apex.oracle.com/quotes, and there's big insurance companies and small firms and universities, and it's just a statement of use of how people are using it. They're using it in departmental level, they're using it in enterprise. It's just statements from them. They're not embellished at all.
Yeah, my organization is, we was introduced with Apex probably about 2.5 years ago, and they built a custom tax for our corporate tax cost enterprises in Atlanta. And they built a custom tax solution, and the tax group loves it. So it was like that whole, buy versus build. And, but everything that they wanted. So, anytime you had me go from the back row to the front row, I was impressed, so.
But does it pull data only from an Oracle database, or it could pull from data from SQL Server or other?
You could probably answer that question better than I, but.
Apex comes from architecture-wise, it's residing in the Oracle database. So whatever possibility you have with the Oracle database to access those other databases
Using things like database links, right?
Yeah.
Apex is just a thin veneer over the database. So using just basic database functionality, you can reach out to MySQL, SQL Server, anything, right? Using heterogeneous services. It's not, but it runs exclusively in an Oracle database.
Well, now we're using more web services to go out to those other sources of data.
or so architecture.
Yes. So just last question. So there was a client who was thinking about Apex vis-a-vis a tool called Microsoft Power BI.
Mm-hmm.
So do you know what the difference could be? Maybe have the answer.
I think they're very different. Apex, as was mentioned, is very customizable in ways, and you can do a lot of different things with it. I mean, ranging from, way beyond just BI. So depending on what they're trying to do, if they wanted to put in things that are not traditionally within BI, then Apex is going to give you more functionality. But if it's just purely within, if they understand Microsoft and that makes sense for the users, there could be, it really kind of depends on what they're trying to achieve. And somebody else pipe up if you have a better answer.
Thank you very much.
I think they're challenged. We're dealing with the same thing with Hyperion Interactive Group. We have, and they don't want to leave, and we have both IR and OBIEE, so I would definitely want to keep in contact with them.
Great.
Yeah.
Where are you located?
I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, I'm determined to get that thing turned off. In fact, I'm curious to know when Oracle is going to completely stop supporting IR, if they are going
They're
to.
now technically, because we're dealing with,
Like, we had to upgrade to version 11 last year just to stay supported.
we just applied a patch last week, 11.1.3700, and it was to help planning, but it broke, it impacted our IR. And so right now we have 2 different patches up.
Okay.
So we have to get off our IR.
Yeah, we are worried. We're worried that one day they're going to just say, you're done, and then what are we going to do with all those reports? We got to get them built before they turn it off. And we have all our HR reports out of IR, but there's this huge project going on at the Chancellor's office called UC Path, and they're putting the whole system onto one PeopleSoft implementation, but they're using Cognos for the reporting. So we've got, I don't know if you saw, but we have a lot of dashboards in OBIEE. We do not have anything in Cognos. We don't even have a license. So I'm trying to decide how we're going to deal with that. I think we're going to build an Apex interface that takes you into, or it might be an OBIEE, but something that takes you, and you don't know, either into Cognos or OBIEE, depending on what subject area you're looking at. But that'll be another interesting challenge. So maybe I'll be back next year with Cognos in there too. Now, that wouldn't be here. Did you have a question?
No.
Okay.
Great presentation, thank
Thank you. Thank you all so much for coming. Please fill out the evaluations.